It is time for another reading vlog where I try and make some progress on the series that I'm in the middle of. I'm hoping this will be the vlog where I finally finish some series that I've been wanting to finish for ages. I've come up with what I hope is a fun concept. I'm excited about it, so I hope you like it too. I've made a spinner wheel, and that spinner wheel has 10 series on it. Half a series where I only have one more book left to read before I complete those series, and the other half a series that I'm still excited for, but I have many more books left to read. So we're going to be spinning the wheel, I think about 3 to 5 times throughout this vlog. I'm not going to go through every series that I've added to the spinner wheel, but I will put a list on the screen so you can see. And we're going to see how many series I can complete. I have already done the first spin. I keep wanting to say roll because I've just filmed another reading vlog where I was rolling at my TBR game. I need to remember to say spin in this vlog. I've done the first spin, I did it over the weekend, and I've already started the first book, so I will insert that footage here. Hopefully you are watching that right now, and you can see that we landed on Murderbot by Martha Wells, which is very exciting. This is a continuation. It's not a series that I've made much progress with. I read the first book a few months ago and really enjoyed it. This was recommended to me because I love the Wayfarers series by Becky Chambers, and I can see why this was recommended. I think it's a great recommendation because it has a similar sort of vibe. I would say that the feeling I get from the Wayfarers series is a bit more hopeful. It still delves into some quite serious topics, but overall the characters seem to have much more of a positive attitude towards certain situations, whereas Murderbot, the main character in the Murderbot series, is a bit more pessimistic. They have a lot of anxiety because they were designed to be a Murderbot, which is exactly what it sounds like. I think the term they use is security robot, and they were designed to be very intelligent because they have to be able to protect humans and get them out of dangerous situations. So because of that, Murderbot has a lot of anxiety, and they are just a soft-hearted little bean. I love Murderbot. The basic premise of this second book, without spoilers, is that Murderbot is travelling somewhere to get some information about their past, and along the way they make, I'm going to call them a friend. I don't know if they're actually a friend, but I really like the introduction of this new character. It's actually put a huge smile on my face so far, and like I said, I'm only 50 pages in, so I think that's a good start. But Murderbot is someone who doesn't like humans really. They don't want to interact with humans. They just want to be left alone so they can watch their soap operas. I think that is really relatable. I think that even though Murderbot is not a human character, I think that there are traits that are really relatable, and I like the sci-fi setting. Obviously it's set in space, and I have been saying all year that I want to read more sci-fi, so yeah, very excited that this came up because it is very short as well. I've left the book in the other room. I am reading this physically, which is unusual for me, but my partner owns, I think, the entire series, or at least most of the books, and they are quite expensive on ebook, and I didn't like the audiobooks. I tried the first book on audio and I didn't love it because I want to think of Murderbot as being a robot. I want that separation. I want to hear their voice in my own brain. So that is what I'm doing this for the start of this vlog. That's the first book that I'm reading, and then I will check in with you once I've finished it and we'll do another spin. I might do that spin actually before I come in and check in with you because this book is so short. I reckon I can finish it tonight. I just realised it probably would have been helpful if I'd actually told you the name of the second Murderbot book. It's called Artificial Condition, and I finished this last night. I had about 100 pages left, so I blasted through it in one sitting, and I really enjoyed this. I'm going to give it a strong 4 stars. I think there's potential for me to give later books in this series 5 stars. For now, we're settling on a 4. I love Murderbot. Murderbot has become one of my favourite fictional characters. I love their dry, sarcastic humour, and it's so interesting being inside their mind because you're seeing their thoughts, but then you're also seeing how they vocalise their opinions. It's just so interesting having a character that is not a human, but who looks human and who is trying sometimes to blend in with humans, or who is having to modulate their own behaviour and what they want to do or how they want to present themselves because they're aware of how they might be perceived. Does that make sense? It's almost like they're masking their true feelings when all they want is just to be left alone. They want to watch their soap operas and their reality TV. They don't want to keep being drawn into human drama, and I think that's so relatable. I wonder whether each book in the series is going to have its own standalone plot. I'm assuming so, because this has a little plot that's kind of wrapped up in this book, but then there's also this overarching mystery to do with Murderbot's past, which I find very interesting. I don't know if this series is even still ongoing. I'm assuming so. I need to do a little more research, but I will definitely be continuing it because I think Murderbot is just such an iconic character. I have done another spin now. I did it last night. I know that it's probably more exciting if I do the spins live so you can see my reactions, but I'm too impatient. So I did another spin last night, and as you can see, it landed on Winter's Orbit, which I do have the first book here. Winter's Orbit is the name of the first book in this series, and it's also the series name from what I gather. But the book that I'm actually going to be reading is Ocean's Echo, which is a companion to Winter's Orbit. I completely forgot that this book had a companion novel until a few months ago. I did a series audit on my channel, and I came across this book, or this series, and thought, oh my gosh, yes, I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. How have I not prioritised the other book? I know why. It's because it's 500 pages and I was a little bit scared of it. But it's been a few years and I am no longer that scared of longer books. So I'm very excited to pick up Ocean's Echo. It's been a while since I read this book, so I'm really hoping that Ocean's Echo has a recap or a refresher on the world, because from what I remember, and I've just had a quick look at the back, this is set in a world where you have an empire called the Isca Empire, and it's a series of planets, or I think this empire rules the planets that are part of this solar system, and the way that they maintain peace is through a series of marriage contracts. And this first book follows an arranged political marriage between 2 men. I think this second book is also a male-male romance, and the reason that I loved this book was because of the romance. It also has this secondary plot to do with a murder mystery, and I thought that was just okay. I actually can't really remember much about that. It was the romance that I fell in love with. It is quite hard-hitting, and it does deal with things like domestic abuse, so something to bear in mind if you are interested in this first book. But I'm interested to see what the second book is all about. I'm not even going to read the synopsis. I'm just going to go in and experience it for myself, which is very exciting. So I will let you know once I made a start on this, and I'll bring you some initial thoughts and feelings. But I am going away this weekend. It might take me a little while to get into this because, as I've already mentioned, it's over 500 pages. If this vlog update seems a little more low energy than usual, it's because I am exhausted. I've been away for the past few days for my friend's wedding, which was lovely, but I am tired. I still wanted to film a vlog update though, because I haven't actually filmed a vlog update for this vlog in nearly 2 weeks. I spontaneously took a week off in order to film my Summerween reading vlog, which is now live. It will have been live for quite a while by the time this vlog goes out, but I'm still really excited to continue reading some series. I have actually started Ocean's Echo. I started it earlier in the week. Things were just busy before I went away, so this is the first time I've had the chance to sit down and properly talk to you, and I feel like I'm rambling, and I just want to get into the reading update because I'm 40% of the way through Ocean's Echo and I'm loving it. It's given me 5-star feelings. It's interesting because it's been so long since I read Winter's Orbit, but picking up Ocean's Echo, it's giving me the feeling that I had when I read Winter's Orbit, but I think we're in a different part of the universe, so everything still feels unfamiliar. It feels like a standalone. I think you could comfortably pick this up even if you haven't read Winter's Orbit. We are following 2 main characters in this whose names I cannot remember. Tennel and Surrit. There we go. See, I thought my brain had switched off, but it hasn't quite. So we're following Tennel and Surrit, and basically in this part of the universe, around 20 years ago, the government, or the army specifically, the military, created these enhanced humans. So you have readers who can read people's minds, and you have architects who can go into people's minds and influence them, but it's temporary and the person knows that they've been influenced. So architects are generally considered, they're more accepted by society compared to readers, even though if a reader deep reads you, then you know about it as well, you can sense it. It's quite an interesting situation, and basically our two main characters, one is a reader and one is an architect. Surrit and Tennel are very different people. Tennel comes from quite a privileged background. He's a bit of a party boy, kind of. He is a rebel, I would say. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He has a bit of a drug addiction, and he's been getting himself involved in stuff that he shouldn't have been getting involved in, but it's a lot more complicated than that. I'm kind of just skimming the surface right now. But then we have Surrit, who is a stickler for the rules. He has quite a strong moral backbone, and so they are two very, very different people, but because of this situation that comes up in the beginning of the book, they are paired together, and it is mostly about their relationship, but there is kind of a sci-fi plot alongside it where they're traveling to somewhere. There's a mission that they're having to do. That's all I'm going to say, and I feel like I've done a really terrible job of explaining this book. Like I said, it's been a really busy few weeks, but I'm very excited to get stuck into this a little more because I feel like I've been reading quite sporadically over the past few weeks. Considering I read 7 books pretty much in 10 days when I was taking part in Summerween, I have slowed down my reading quite a bit since then. Me and Sam are actually going to the cinema this afternoon to see The Odyssey, which is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if I can stay awake for it. Once we get home, I am planning on reading some more of Ocean's Echo, and yeah, like I said, it's giving me 5-star feelings. I think I'm going to love this just as much as Winter's Orbit. Actually, compared to Winter's Orbit, I'm finding the sci-fi plot a bit more engaging in this one. I think with Winter's Orbit, it was quite obvious to me what the thriller sci-fi plot resolution was going to be, whereas I think Ocean's Echo is going to be a bit more unpredictable. Sam is currently watching the World Cup final in the other room, so if you hear any sudden shouts or screams, then that's what that is. But I wanted to bring you my final thoughts on Ocean's Echo because I finished it this afternoon and I loved it. I am going to give it 5 stars. However, I want to try and set some expectations because this was quite different to Winter's Orbit. It's weird because it gave me a similar sort of feeling. I would say that Winter's Orbit is fairly balanced in terms of the romance and the political sci-fi mystery thriller elements. I would say it's kind of 50-50. So if you're only interested in romance, then you'll find the other half of the book quite boring. Whereas with Ocean's Echo, I liked the romance. It was my favourite thing about the book, but it felt more like a political sci-fi with a little bit of a slow, not even a little bit, it was a significant part of the book. It's a very slow burn though. It's not spicy at all, but there are a lot of scenes and interactions between the two main characters, which is why when I checked in with you at the halfway point, I think I had this perception that it was focusing on the relationship, because it was. Like, there's so much of these two characters talking and they have a little bit of banter and there's tension. There's things to do with the plot that they're having to work through, and so my perception was that this was focusing on the relationship, which does become romantic, but because it's such a slow burn and because so much of the plot is to do with the politics of it all, and that became much more clear as I was getting further into the book. I just wanted to mention that because I think if you go into this expecting a romance, then you might be a little bit disappointed, whereas if you go into this wanting a political sci-fi, I think that side of things was done well, better in my opinion than in Winter's Orbit. If you want that and you want a very slow burn romance on the side, then I think you could really enjoy this. I feel like that was quite difficult to explain, so I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I enjoyed the plot in this. It didn't quite go in the direction that I was expecting, but I didn't read the full Goodreads synopsis, and I think the synopsis on Goodreads does give away more than I would have personally wanted. It talks a lot about military corruption. Surrit is a lieutenant in the military, but both main characters, their parents were part of the original people who were turned into readers and architects, and when they created readers and architects, they had no idea that those traits were going to be passed down through the generations, and I just found that aspect really interesting. I thought the characters in this were really well developed. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on Winter's Orbit. I am going to do my next roll, not my next roll, I knew I was going to keep doing that. We're going to do my next spin now. Let me just get up the spinner wheel and we will see what it lands on. You're going to see this before me because I can't really see on the screen. Oh, okay, the Tomes and Tea series by Rebecca Thorne. This is perfect actually because I read the third book quite recently and I only have one more book left to read it. Okay, this is perfect because I've just technically finished a series with Ocean's Echo and now I'm going to be finishing a second series. So I will probably wait till tomorrow before starting this because it's getting quite late, it's 8:45. I've read so much today. I must have read for about 3 hours this afternoon because I was so into Ocean's Echo. But yeah, I will check in with you once I have some initial thoughts on is it Alchemy and a Cup of Tea? I feel like I always get the names of these books wrong. I have made a start on Alchemy and a Cup of Tea. I'm around a third of the way through, which isn't actually that much because this book is less than 300 pages. I didn't realise it's actually, I think, the shortest book in the series, and that does concern me a little bit. I was a little apprehensive going into this fourth book because by the time I got to the end of book 3, I felt like everything plot-wise had been wrapped up, and so I couldn't see why we needed a fourth book. There's an epilogue which sets things up, but otherwise I was kind of thinking, oh, are we just dragging this on when it doesn't need to be dragged on? I'm enjoying it so far because I do like the characters, I do like the world, and this is delving into some of the magic side of things, which I think has been missing from this series, so I'm okay with it for now. In the series we are following two main characters, Raina and Chianthe, and the first book gets a lot of comparisons to Legends and Lattes because it's about these two women, this couple, who decide to run away together to set up a coffee shop. No, a tea shop that is also a bookshop. Legends and Lattes is the coffee shop. No, this is a tea shop that is a bookshop because each of these women have a different passion that they decide to combine. The first book is about them moving to this small town and the process of them setting up this business, and it was really cute and heartwarming, but there was still that edge of, oh, we have a little bit of stakes here. I don't personally love that in cozy fantasy. I want there to either be no stakes at all, or if I'm not reading a cozy fantasy, I want it to be epic high fantasy with really serious stakes. I don't like this middle ground because I find it a little bit pointless. Like if I'm reading cozy fantasy, I know that everything is probably going to be okay in the end because otherwise it's not really that cozy, is it? So I have had some issues with this series. The second book I felt went off on a bit of a tangent. It was this kind of side quest. It was fine, but it wasn't what I wanted from this series. But then the third book I think brought it back around because the third book is set back in Tawny, this town, and I just really like the characters and that small town setting. This one, interestingly, has partly so far been set in Tawny, but it's also moved to a different setting, and I don't want to say too much, but it's kind of a festival environment, and I really like that vibe. I feel like this could be really fun. There's still some stuff that needs to be resolved back home though, so I feel like we're going to get the best of both worlds. I think that's why I preferred the first and third book in this series, because I do like that small town setting, but I'm okay with what's happening so far. It's good. I'm just concerned that this is going to feel too short and that it's going to feel a bit pointless by the end, but I should have faith that it's all going to be okay. I do think that Rebecca Thorne as an author has improved a lot book to book. I feel like the writing in the third book was a lot better. The only thing that I do sometimes struggle with is I don't always like the humour in this. I feel like it's a bit corny and a bit cheesy. One of the main characters, Chianthe, is very much into puns, and so any excuse to say a pun based on what someone else has said, I don't know why I need to over explain that. Like Chianthe likes puns, and sometimes it feels a bit too much for me. But at least at this point in the series, I find it much easier to distinguish between Raina and Chianthe, because in the first book, that was one of my main critiques, is I felt like their voices were too similar, but that has changed the further that I've got into the series. So yeah, this is going okay so far. I think I'm just going to check in with you once I've finished, because I have less than 200 pages to go, and I don't really feel like I'm that far into it. I do feel like the pace, especially in this first third, has been a little too quick for my liking. I have quite a few updates that I need to go through with you today on this beautiful sunny Sunday. I'm very aware that it's taken me nearly the whole month to film this vlog, which is fine. It takes as long as it takes at the end of the day. Over the past few days, it's been really busy. I saw 2 musicals in 2 days. Me and Sam went out with some of his friends on Friday night. We saw Come From Away, which is a musical I'd never heard about, but it's set during the aftermath of 9/11. I would describe it as a comedy, even though it sounds like it shouldn't be a comedy, but it has moments of humour and then moments that are much more poignant, and I thought it was really well done. It's also a continuous musical, so there's no intermission. It was really, really, really good, actually. And then yesterday I went into Birmingham with my mum because it was her birthday earlier this week, and we had tickets to see Matilda, which was amazing. It was just so fun. Like, I've not seen the film version of the theatre show. Obviously, I've seen the original film from the 90s, and I've also read the book many, many times. I was a huge Roald Dahl fan when I was growing up. So yeah, it's been a really nice few days. It's just been quite draining, and I'm very aware that because I've been filming this vlog for so long, I've probably said many, many times that I'm tired, and I need to bring the energy back, because I do find when I've been filming a vlog for a while that I start to lose enthusiasm for it, and I don't want that to happen. So let's get into the reading updates. I have now finished Alchemy and a Cup of Tea. I finished this last night, not with a cup of tea because I don't really drink tea. I am a fake British person. I enjoyed the series. I would probably give this final book a 3.5 stars. I think it was a good end to the series, and I think I was saying earlier in the vlog, I was unsure whether this 4th book was needed, but I think for me this was a better ending to the series in comparison to the 3rd book. The 3rd book had more of a fairy tale like ending. It was almost too neat and perfect, whereas this, I think, brought it back round to what I wanted the series to be about, which is these 2 women who decide to run away from their responsibilities because they love each other so much and they don't get to spend that much time together. They both have very stressful lives and there's circumstances that keep them apart, and so they decide to go and set up this bookshop, which is also a tea shop, because it combines both of their passions. I liked that the 1st book was much more slice of life, and I have found throughout the series that it's become less slice of life and more of a cozy adventure, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. I like slice of life cozy fantasy. This, it was still a cozy adventure, and there were still bigger world things that needed to be resolved to do with magic, and the dragons also play a pretty big part in this final book. You can even see on the front cover there are dragons, and yeah, it was good. I'm glad that it was the shortest book in the series, because I don't think I would have liked another 100 pages of this. In fact, there's an epilogue at the end which is set 10 years later, and I read that epilogue, but I didn't read what I think was a short story at the the end. I skimmed through it and thought, I don't care about this because it's about characters that I don't care about, as harsh as that sounds. So yeah, I did enjoy this final book, and I liked that the tone in which it ended was about these characters and their love for each other and this small town and this community that they've built. I think I cared more about that side of things than the bigger world plot. Hopefully that makes sense if you've read the series, but as I said, it was good. I would probably give this series like a 7 out of 10 overall. The third book was my favourite. So yeah, that's the third book that we've read for this vlog. It's the second series that I finished, and we are now going to do another spin. I think I'm just going to read one more book for this vlog because, as I said, I don't want it to drag on too long, but we are going to spin and hopefully you can see this. I can't see anything right now. So what is it? Oh, okay. The Patternist. That is Octavia Butler's series that I read the first book, Wild Seed, earlier this year and enjoyed it. And I said to myself, I need to continue this series. There's something about Octavia Butler's writing that really works for me. I do think the books in this series contain self-contained stories. I think they're sort of standalones, but then I don't know whether Wild Seed was a standalone prequel and then the rest of the books kind of follow on from each other. I've seen so many different ways of reading this series and different orders that you can read it, because I think there's the publication order, but then there's the chronological order, and I think most people recommend the chronological order. So I'm gonna look into what book I should read next for the series, and then I will check in with you once I've started it. So I did a little bit of research and I came across a bind-up of this series called Seed to Harvest, which is what I ended up buying because it was cheaper than buying the books individually. But this has the books listed in chronological order, so that's the way that I've decided to go. I'm currently reading Mind of My Mind, and so far I'm happy with my decision. I was getting a little bit overwhelmed looking through Reddit threads of people saying you absolutely have to read this book first, or you have to read this book before this book, and I don't think it actually matters, at least from the research that I was doing. It seems like each book is its own self-contained story, and actually Mind of My Mind is a direct sequel, or I should probably say that Wild Seed is a prequel to Mind of My Mind. From what I was seeing, people were recommending that you read those two together, and so far I agree with that, but I don't think you would be necessarily doing anything wrong if you just went straight into Mind of My Mind and then you read Wild Seed afterwards, because that is quite common with series, to read the prequel after having read the main timeline. Hopefully what I've said makes sense. I just feel quite strongly about this. As someone who used to borrow books a lot from the library when I was growing up, there were many series where I started with like the third or fourth book. Other than getting spoilers, obviously, it was never a problem. I was still able to understand what was going on. But anyway, let's talk about what this series is actually about. So Wild Seed is about two people who have lived for a very long time, and it's mostly a study of their relationship. One of the characters is called Dorro, and he has a fascination with eugenics. He has created these communities around the world. I don't know how to phrase this, but his intention is to see how traits are passed down through generations, specifically magical traits. And that is kind of the premise, I feel, of these two books. In this second book, I'm calling it the second book, obviously. The name of the book is Mind of My Mind. In this book, we're following one of Dorro's daughters. I think this is set in what would have been present day in the 1970s, but we're following Mary, who is a teenager. Well, she's 19, turning 20, and she lives in California, and she is reaching a point where she is coming into her powers. So I feel like that's all I should say, really. I feel like that gives you a good indication of what the series is about. It's quite complicated, as you can tell when I'm trying to explain it, but I am really enjoying it. The writing to me feels not as smooth as the other books that I've read by Octavia E. Butler. I've read quite a few now. The Parable of the Sower duology is my favourite thing by her. Also really enjoyed Kindred, but I think those came out a little bit later, or maybe not. Maybe Kindred came out around the same time as this. Parts of this are really uncomfortable, but intentionally so. And I like how Octavia E. Butler has such a way with words, and she can get across the horror and the uncomfortableness of a situation without spelling it out for you, just leaving you to kind of sit with your feelings. For example, Dorro has no issue with pairing people together who are related. So just bear that in mind if you are thinking about picking up this series. I think it's quite interesting how Octavia Butler explores morality within this series. So at the point that I'm at, it's really difficult because it's a bind-up. I can't tell exactly where I am in this particular book, but I'm part way through part 2. So I think I'm nearly halfway through it. It's a very short book. It's only 200 pages. So far I am enjoying this just as much as Wild Seed though. Having now finished Mind of My Mind, I stand by what I said about how you can read this either before or after Wild Seed. I don't think it makes too much difference, except you are going to have a different experience depending on which you start with. I think the most important thing is to think of them as two separate books. Wild Seed, in my opinion, has a lot more character depth. It's about these two people who meet. Up until that point, they thought they were alone in the world, or they thought they were the only people who had this ability to live for a very long time. And it's about how that affects them individually, but also how it affects their relationship. I think there's a lot of nuances to the relationship in Wild Seed, and that was lacking from Mind of My Mind. Mind of My Mind is Mary's story. There are some side characters too, but this is more about building a community, and it's about power. Power is a huge thing throughout this series so far, specifically control, and how some of these characters are cold and calculating, and they have no conscience. They don't care as much about people that they see as beneath them, whereas others are less calculating, but they still look down on people. Or I guess it depends. You have to look at it from their perspective and their version of morality. They can seem very nonchalant about stuff that, as the reader, you're thinking, that's horrific. I think that spectrum of morality is very interesting. I also love books that explore things to do with the mind and psychic links. I don't want to go too much into it, but I think I had more of an understanding of, I don't want to call it magic, but like the supernatural, or yeah, the supernatural elements of Mind of My Mind because I'd read Wild Seed. I just don't think the characters stood out to me as much as in the first book that I read. The reason that I read Wild Seed first, by the way, is because I had access to the audiobook, whereas for some reason I couldn't find the audiobooks for the rest of the season. The series. I think there are audiobooks for the other books, but I think they're quite old by now, and so I knew after reading Wild Seed, when I decided that I wanted to continue the series, I knew that I was going to have to read it on Kindle or physically in some way. I would give this a strong 4 stars, which is the same rating that I gave the first book. If you haven't read anything by Octavia Butler, by the way, then I think you should. I would strongly recommend her books if you enjoy speculative fiction. I would probably recommend starting with Parable of the Sower if you like dystopian fiction, or Kindred if you like historical fiction. Wild Seed, I think, is also pretty good, but that is more of, I would say, societal science fiction. It really explores social dynamics and it has strong social commentary, but that's not to say that Octavia Butler's other books don't have that. I feel like I'm rambling, so we're going to wrap things up here. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this type of vlog. I really enjoyed the spinner wheel and not knowing, am I going to continue a series? Am I going to finish a series? I am wondering whether my next series vlog should focus on finishing series, because I have quite a few where I only need to read one more book in order to complete them. I've had a few, there's a few recent releases as well that have come out that would be completing series for me. So yeah, let me know in the comments how your series reading has gone this summer, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Click subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me, but otherwise I will see you next time. Bye.